Another close game late for the Florida Panthers, and once again, it's another third period goal that was the difference for the Panthers as they continue to bank points.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, October 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. That is Nick Fairbanks. You can follow him on X at Prudentia0. Joining me on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app and place your first $5 bet for a chance to win $300 in bonus bets. You can do that all on FanDuel. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers, as the Panthers are off to a 2-0 start after defeating the Philadelphia Flyers by a final score of 2-1 in regulation. It's another regulation win for the Panthers. It's another third period goal that the Panthers scored to make the difference. This time it was the Rat King, Brad Marchand, making the difference for the Panthers. And it was a similar trend where it was dominant from the start with the Panthers tilting the ice. The only difference was that the Panthers got the first goal of the game. And once again, power play 2 was the one to strike. But Nick, my biggest takeaway for the Panthers was the ability to once again take advantage of the opposition's defensemen. For Philadelphia, there was no Cam York, there was no Rasmus Ristolainen in the lineup for the Flyers, but it was their consistency in able to win puck battles and then create scoring chances. Because also on the Philadelphia Flyers side, at 5-on-5, the Corsi, the shot attempt share was about even. But the amount of shots that landed on goal, the Panthers were getting into those lanes and really truly made the difference. And sometimes those ricochets helped the Panthers truly get out of their zone fast and on a rush.
I like to call that a defensive clinic.
Yes.
Panthers have been swarming their opponents the first two games. They had to definitely keep an eye on Mr. Bedard on the first game, but and Nazer, excuse me. But they let him get one in after the first. But I will say this: this is what Florida's had to do. They are without their top two stars. Their offense is probably not going to be what it has been in the past. And so they got to find goals somewhere. And, what you need to do first is make sure that your defense is set and it's strong. So I have to say, as far as the Corsi goes, I'm fine with it being even as long as Bob is being cleaned up and he's not seeing a lot. He would probably disagree because he wants to probably see a lot of puck. But other than that, I just think Florida's doing a very good job of making sure that they are being aggressive in the neutral zone and making sure that if any team's going to enter their zone, they're going to have to work for it.
No doubt. And the amount of speed that the Panthers were able to establish when they were gaining the zone, especially because a lot of the time that they were going up the flank and then the Flyers weren't adjusting based on the Panthers hitting the trailer and then the middle of the ice being open. In the example of the Lundell goal on the power play, which he was able to get through past the blocker of Dan Vladar on the night. But also, I got to give credit to the Panthers, especially where they started tilting the ice was on that 4-on-4 in the first period, where Sam Reinhart, the amount of chances that he had, followed his own shot and still continued a whole bunch of zone time. Evan Rodriguez creating chances for Mackie Samoskevich, although Mackie didn't get a point. He got 6 shots on the night. The amount of times that Evan Rodriguez was getting behind some inexperienced defenseman for the Philadelphia Flyers there. And also Jeff Petrie, my goodness, he was a big standout for the first period. Had that hit on Tyson Forster to separate the puck and then was getting in the shooting lanes for them. So that was big in the first period for the Panthers. And getting that first goal in the second period, just 5 minutes in, and to think that the goal that they did give up a little bit of a fluke with Bob not being able to handle the puck. But to think that Matvei Michkov, a very skilled winger that the Philadelphia Flyers have, his only 2 shots on goal was that sequence that it was the chance off the rebound and Sergei Bobrovsky closing the leg, because if he doesn't close that leg there, that's likely in the back of the net.
It definitely is. And, the fact that, the Panthers were able to zero in on Mitchkov and, how well he's played since he's come into the league, and he doesn't have Tortorella benching him, that could definitely help too. But another player I was very, high on was Coates. He did have that one move that he put off the post that, it was a really good play on the puck there. So Philadelphia did have some chances, but luckily we have the better goaltender, we have the better defense, and then even with Petrie coming in, he's the new guy in the top in the bottom 6 here as far as the defense, and I wasn't too high on him because I've seen him play in other areas, especially Detroit last season. Um, Maybe he will find a new reborn Petrie himself, kind of like how others have, like Oliver Ekman Larson and now Nate Schmidt. So who knows? Maybe third time is a charm again for the Panthers, but overall, I mean, it was just a solid game by the whole team. Bob from the net out.
Yeah, and you think that that they didn't spend a lot of time shorthanded either. The only time that they spent shorthanded was 16 seconds after an abbreviated power play that they had, and then on that one power play that Philadelphia had in the middle part of the first period, no shots on goal. The Panthers were able to just limit their chances and force them once again to the outside and deny them of entries into the zone. And in the second period for the Panthers, I mean, although and Philadelphia, their longest time of owning the ice was a period after the Flyers went 11 straight minutes without a shot on goal. So that we've seen these stretches so many times throughout these last few postseasons of the Panthers just giving them nothing, and it's getting to the double digits of minutes. So bread and butter for the Florida Panthers as far as just playing to their identity. And to think that they had to do this with losing Dmitry Kulikov, a little bit of a collision in the neutral zone, grabbed his forearm/wrist area, didn't return. We'll have a little bit of an update on him. But to think their goal differential on the season is +2, but this is why you also can't box score watch in this league. And when you watch this Florida Panthers team play, because those 2 games between the Panthers and the Flyers and the Blackhawks, something just told you that the Panthers were going to find a way to get in on the score sheet. And for the Panthers, Brad Marchand getting a partial change and then just a smart play from the half wall. Dan Vladar didn't see it coming, and then it goes over the shoulder bar down.
So you put it correctly. I mean, if you're just going to look at the score differential of being +2, you're not really watching what's been going on. It's been, again, a defensive clinic, and Florida's been able to basically dictate, like they have for the last couple seasons, how the games are going to go. As long as they don't lose their composure, which again they don't do very often, and they stick to what they're good at, they're gonna frustrate some teams. You brought it up. There were multiple times during the last postseason and last season where teams would not even get a shot off over double digits, like 10, 12, even 15 minutes. And that might be in between periods too, combining them together. But it just goes to show you the commitment to success and what works for them. As far as the Rat King, very smart play considering that the offense is a little bit starved right now. I mean, I know they're getting shots on goal, but maybe they're not of the best quality.
Yeah.
But I mean, why not just take it off the boards with a rip? He's not expecting, Vladar's not expecting it. And he played a very good game.
Yeah.
I'll give him kudos. It could have been a lot worse, but I think it's just a veteran play with a veteran, idea of, take a shot, and there's no bad shot in the NHL anymore. I mean, you can get a rebound off of that, or it can deflect off of one of their defensemen or one of our guys and go in the back of the net. You never know unless you try.
Yeah, and for the Philadelphia Flyers, it's just like the Chicago Blackhawks on opening night. Their gaps were it was they were not closing them, except it was mostly in the neutral zone when they were having a hard time getting with the Panthers. You saw it on the interference call that was on Seth Jones. And then even in their offensive zone, it was also about where they committed penalties. The Dvorak one being in the offensive zone. So not in their own end. So it's just consistently shooting themselves in the foot. And we even saw it in the last 2 minutes where they have the extra attacker, and then you don't even give yourself a chance to come back. But that's also has to do with how well Florida is with their positioning, and it proved once again in this 2-1 win for the Panthers. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss our 3 stars of the game and the moment where we knew the game was won. We'll discuss that all next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets. And with the New York Giants coming out with a win against the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday Night Football, that might make the betting odds lean more towards Mike McDaniel as possibly the first coach fired in the NFL, with Brian Daboll kind of saving his job with a win tonight for the Giants. So if you want to sprinkle in a bet there, you can do that all on FanDuel. It makes watching football even more exciting. So you got a little something riding on the action, whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats. FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today to get started. Segment number 2 here on this Friday, October 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday here with Nick Fairbanks. It is Fairbanks Friday. We are celebrating a win as the Panthers defeat the Philadelphia Flyers by a final score of 2-1 to take their record to 2-0-0. A perfect homestand so far for the Panthers. And this segment is where we are going to discuss our 3 stars of the game. And we are also going to discuss the turning point where we knew the game was won or lost. In the case of tonight, it's the win for the Panthers. So honorable mention, like I mentioned in segment number 1, Mackie Samoskevich was outstanding. They were finding ways to feed him the puck. And to think that once again, Evan Rodriguez hasn't played center much in his time with the Florida Panthers, has adjusted so well. We see more and more how valuable he truly is, especially with these guys sideline, and we even saw it even before with his way to move up and down the lineup. So Mackie Samoskevich and Evan Rodriguez are honorable mentions, but Sergei Bobrovsky is my 3rd star. 1 goal against, which I have also another thing to say about Bobrovsky, maybe a moment where we knew the game was won. So 1 goal against, an outstanding game for Bob as he's continuing to climb up the ranks as far as most wins as far as getting to 9th all time in wins for him. 2nd star, Brad Marchand, the GWG, and 6 shots on goal. There was one play especially where you thought that he was going to score a second one, but he passes it off to Sam Bennett. And also there was a blocked a sweep that he had, and also Carter Hagee hitting him on a stretch, but just misses the post. The amount of times that he was just able to get behind and also put pressure on, and to think that the goal that he scored, once again, it was on a partial change with the 4th line on the ice. It wasn't his whole entire line. So, and then number 1 star, your boy, Anton Lundell, 6 shots on goal, and the only player over 50% in the dot, 60% on the night for Lundell. His use of hands, once again, we talk about how outstanding they are, and how he's once again the Panthers' ability to go down the middle, and it was quite easy for them on the night against Philly. So your 3 stars.
So my 3rd star is going to be Anton Lundell for me. The reason why I say that is because I'm still expecting more for him with the absence of Barkov and Tkachuk. He's got some big shoes to fill, and I think, with a little bit more time, he'll be able to, I guess, fill those shoes and actually show, what I and others have said about him. But, getting that first goal on the power play, it was huge. I think it really kind of like got the monkey off of the so-called Panthers back, because they had so many chances to score and it just wasn't going in. So I think from there, he set the tone. Second star, excuse me, is going to be Brad Marchand, with the game-winning goal and just having the heads-up play of throwing the puck on the net. And then, as you were saying, just other scoring opportunities. It seems like ever since the playoffs, he's always found a way to have like multiple scoring chances. And, it doesn't have to be breakaways. It's just he's always going to be at the front of the net to try and score as well. And then my first star is going to be Bob. Uh, I don't want to say that he had the best first game of the season. He usually starts slow, but he did enough in that first game for the Panthers to come out with a win. Tonight, I felt like there was more to be, I guess, defended against in a way. Like, I think that he was more solid than I've seen him in the beginning of the season. I don't think he's fighting the puck as much. I think he's tracking it very well, and he's very smooth in his movements. So that tells me, number one, that he's been ready to go for a couple weeks now, and that he's finally possibly found a way to get rid of the slow starts during the season. And for him and for this team and what they're going through right now, by far is the best thing going for them. So that's why, in my opinion, he deserves the first star.
I'm glad that he sticks to his structure instead of freelancing around the net. Especially, I mean, one goaltender that we saw. I mean, it worked for this specific goaltender throughout their prime was Jonathan Quick. He was more of the one who would freelance in his own net, and you never know what kind of movement that Jonathan Quick would have in his own. But Sergei Bobrovsky still right up tight the crease, and then obviously when there's times that they crash the net, he knows when to let go of that stick to create another blocking lane for himself. 8 wins away now from passing Jacques Plante for 9th all-time in wins. So he's continuing to go on that climb, which leads me to the moment where I knew the game was won, the turning point for the Panthers. An outstanding scoring chance by Travis Konechny at the net front. Blue paint. Bobrovsky, he had an angle to get that puck into the net. Sergei Bobrovsky takes it away. So that is, and the Panthers are already leading. The difference in this game was the Marchand goal came under 3 minutes in, while the game against Chicago came midway through. The Panthers got it early and were able to shut it down. And Bobrovsky, just outstanding work against Travis Konechny, where the net looked wide open, and that save was with 8 minutes left. So that's my moment where I knew the game was won.
You're taking all my talking points so far this season, man. I don't know what to do. I don't know if we're sharing notes or you're looking over my shoulder. I don't know what's going on over here, but where I knew we won the game was when Marchand actually scored, because of 3 letters. LSD, which is lock stuff down for you kids that are listening. It's basically just making sure that you are playing defense the right way and you're being as suffocating as possible, not allowing the other team many chances. And if they do, that your goaltender is making the plays it needs to. But the Panthers with the lead in the third period, what did Biz say? It's like a boa constrictor or an anaconda just squeezes the life out of you. And that may not be the funnest thing to watch, and I know funnest is not a word, but it just shows you again like what this team is all about and what they can do in order to ensure that they're going to win. And there's nobody right now that can do it better than them until further notice. And that's me knocking on some wood right there. So Marchand with when I knew he was going to win, or when they won the game.
Yeah, and obviously we know the state of the two teams. The Panthers coming off back-to-back, the Philadelphia Flyers trying to just get out of the basement. They're an accomplished season for them would be picking maybe somewhere around 10th to 15th in the draft, now trying to get out of the basement there. So it's a tough task for two teams that the Panthers have been facing it off against in the season. But hey, we don't complain about wins here. The Panthers, although their depth is tested, they still, you check the boxes of looking at these two teams on paper and saying, okay, the Panthers got the job done in a game that they were on paper supposed to. So that's the great thing about so far 2-0-0 on this very young season. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to turn the page, give an injury update to Dmitry Kulikov, and also discuss the end of the homestand for the Panthers as they will welcome in Brady Tkachuk and the Ottawa Senators. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Segment 3 here on this Friday, October 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Armando Velez here with Nick Fairbanks on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. The Florida Panthers came off a 2-1 win over the Philadelphia Flyers. And by the way, Nick, I mentioned goal differential, how it's not going to be over 25. And I still have my notification from Bleacher Report from when the game started, Panthers Flyers. Do you know what their over-under on goals was for this game? If you had to take a guess.
6.
5.5. So
Okay.
they're over. Yeah. So
you can round it up. It's fine.
Yeah. So you're around there. But I'm thinking, man, there's going to be a lot of those games where it's going to be the under for the Panthers. By the way, I finished Face Off inside the NHL. Have you been able to watch it?
Yeah, I was able to finally finish it.
I'm the type of person who has to watch it in order, even though you don't have to watch it in order. And just the Brad Marchand, Matthew Tkachuk story, how the chirping got to Brad Marchand when Matthew Tkachuk said, a captain quitting on his team, and just the art of a chirp, and just how everything went down with injuries and the trade. So I highly recommend you guys checking out those episodes of Face Off Inside the NHL. And our friends over on the Tuesday edition of Locked On NHL, JD and Seth, they were actually featured in that episode as well. So it's a Locked On NHL shout out in that show. But we do have a quote unquote update on Dmitry Kulikov. It's not really much of an update. It's the same Paul Maurice answer that said he'll get checked on tomorrow, and we'll go from there. So, and by the way, tomorrow's practice is actually open to the public. So if you happen to be in the area and you want to go watch practice, you have the ability to at Baptist Health Iceplex in Fort Lauderdale. So I don't know how to react now, Nick, to be quite honest. Whenever I hear the words he'll be evaluated tomorrow, but didn't look like that he was able to grip the stick, wouldn't have been able to grip the stick the way he was holding on to his forearm/wrist.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, what happened to him. I mean, I feel like it happened a few years ago too, where he missed some time, roughly the same type of injury in a way, but he came back just fine. I hope he's not out for a long period of time, and if he is, then Florida is gonna really have to start looking at the kind of defenseman they either want to go with as far as like Uvis, or do they want to bring somebody in from Charlotte who maybe could get a taste of the NHL. But I guess it just depends on, how the team's rolling, how their matchups really play out, and what the team needs. Kulikov has been instrumental in these last couple of cup runs, whatever you want to say about him. I mean, I know he wasn't the best in his first tenure, but he's been a solidifying figure on, the defense back there. So, and one comment I want to make about, the face-off series, the fact that they were playing Pink Pony as long as they did was a chirp in and of itself. So I hope the Edmonton Oilers and the Edmonton Oilers faithful got a long listen and look of that episode.
I counted almost a handful of times, by the way, that was being played, including at the very end. But yeah, Dmitry Kulikov, that's not the first time that he's been tangled up. I remember the game, actually. It was against the New York Islanders, being tangled up against Anthony Duclair. He actually committed a penalty in that same sequence when it happened on Long Island. It was a road game from what I remember, and he was out for a few weeks there. But not saying that they are related. Don't want to speculate there, but we'll just have to wait until Paul Maurice speaks to the media. But Nick, this is a great feeling. Being 2-0-0, seeing how the Panthers are not letting up against these two teams who didn't make the playoffs, but now they welcome in an Ottawa Senators team who actually came back from down 3-1 against the Tampa Bay Lightning. There was a fight in the first few minutes of the game. Shane Pinto gets 2 goals, and Ottawa, they are there. I have them in the playoffs once again. And I'm not saying that this is a must win for the Panthers. I will not call game 3 of a regular season of a regular season a must win, but it is somewhat of a swing game for these two teams, because you never know what obviously home ice doesn't mean as much for the Panthers. They went through a whole playoff run last year, but as far as a confidence boost, knowing that you're down 2 guys, and imagine coming out with a win on Saturday, and still saying, hey, our system still works even without these guys.
I think it would send a really good message. I mean, again, as you said, we're going to be without our top 2 players, but it'll be interesting to see how the defensive structure decides to play Brady, Pinto, Stutzla, and I forget who's the player that they acquired from Buffalo last year.
Dylan Cousins, he got a goal tonight.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting for them to, I guess, how they're going to deploy against the guys like that. Now, I will say, I'm not surprised that Tampa was fighting again. It just it reminds me of the Boston Bruins when they came in last season to start the season, and they were not interested in playing hockey at all. They just wanted to fight. It seems to me that Tampa is either trying to come to grips with the reality of what's possibly going to happen to them in the next few seasons, or they're just trying to remind everybody, like, hey, we're still around too, and we only did this a short time ago. But they need to just get back to playing hockey. I mean, they didn't need to, I guess, get into what they did tonight, and it cost them.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're a little bit more fragile than they were before. But I'm welcoming the test with Ottawa. I hope Bob is up for the challenge. If he gets the game. If not, Tarasov has been very good in the preseason. I would love to see him get a game and actually get a game in against a really good opponent.
We know Tarasov will at least get one of the games next week, as the Panthers will be on a back-to-back in Detroit and New Jersey. So we will definitely see Tarasov sometime in the next week. But for the Ottawa Senators, I mean, I'm really impressed with what they have down the middle. Timmy Stutzla, probably it's either him or Anton Lundell as the top 2 of the best players in that draft. Stutzla hasn't had the playoff success like Lundell has, but Shane Pinto, he got suspended a few years ago due to a situation involving gambling, and Dylan Cousins for Josh Norris. I mean, the healthier of the 2, you're getting that in Ottawa for them. So down the middle looks great, and they didn't really have a big splash in free agency, as they are betting on internal development as these guys get a little older. Jake Sanderson is an absolute stud. Linus Ullmark, if he's healthy, now he's a full off season with his new club instead of trying to acclimate to a new place. So, possibility for growth with this Ottawa Senators team. So that's another thing where of what I'm looking at now. We talk about teams who have had to go through pain. They got through a little bit of that before in an attempt to come back from 3-0 against Toronto. Almost made it happen, but now they got some of that experience under their belt.
And that's sometimes all you need, right? For the Panthers, they came out of the other side in a way. They were able to overcome that series deficit and, shock the world. And that was the best overall team, in NHL history by season ranks. So you get a little bit of taste of that. You see what worked and what really you have to do to get back into a series. It almost makes the regular season seem, I guess, like not that hard, especially if you know what you're supposed to be doing. So I really do think Ottawa's going to take the next step, but the only way that they're going to do that is if Ullmark can play up to his potential. And to be honest, I didn't find him to be overly great last year. And, unfortunately, I think also in the playoffs, he was not their best player when he needed to be. So time will tell if, he was all smoke and mirrors with Boston, or if he's going to turn another corner and he's going to turn this franchise around up in Ottawa.
Yeah, and Ottawa is also starting the season with one of their best wingers, and Drake Batherson. He's shelved right now to start the season, so that's some scoring punch for the Ottawa Senators that is currently going to be missing in their lineup. He at least scores. He's at least a half a point a player throughout the last few seasons, so that's a big part of their middle six that is going to be missing to start the year. They said that he might come back in the second game of the season, but something to monitor for Travis Green and his squad over there in Ottawa. So hey, if the Panthers come out of this 3-0-0 to start the homestand, this is their creating some cushion in for not if the storm happens for a possible losing streak, but when, because we know that the Panthers are going to face some type of adversity, and to have a great start at home and how they've been playing, hoping it continues here. It'll be great to see 3-0 to start the year. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can find you online, my friend.
Thank you again for having me on, Armando. I say that every show, but I really am thankful for that. Everybody, you guys can follow me on X at Prudentia0. And if I may make one last point, this game may be one of the bigger ones as far as like the matchups go, because if you look at the standings last year, Florida was 99 points. Ottawa came in at 97. That could have been the difference of being a wild card team or playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. So no game is ever guaranteed. You just got to win what's in front of you. And Armando, I'll be back next week.
Yeah, go out there and get it, Panthers. Thank you, Nick. See you next week. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nick Fairbanks. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.